Let's bring in a senior researcher and director at Afrasid, Thembisa Fakude, just to unpack this further for us while we monitor, of course, Ayanda's live feed at King Shaka International Airport. Thembisa, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to the show. So we've just been hearing from Ayanda, 11 more men have now arrived back home. 4 arrived last week. This brings an end to a long and traumatic experience for those men, as we heard there from Ayanda, having been lured under these false pretenses, as they've also been telling families, only to find themselves on the front lines of a war zone. Of course, notwithstanding the consequences of arrests here at home, we know that a number of African men, not just South African men, were lured to partake in this Russia-Ukraine war. Just speak to us then about how this issue has played out geopolitically and, of course, domestically here at home.
Well, I think, yes, they were lured into going to Russia, but there's a law in South Africa which prevents or prohibits people from fighting in foreign wars. And that's a crime. So notwithstanding the preface to the story, there's a crime that was committed by these men, wittingly or unwittingly, and I think the law must then judge whether they are guilty or not guilty. That's, I think, the first point, because the precedence that this will set is likely to also impact on other situations. We're currently facing a number of people who are currently fighting in the war, particularly in Gaza, South Africans who are joined the Israeli Defense Force. What will happen to them? So there must be a law and a decision, legal decision, that will at least set a good precedence, not necessarily to have the absolution of future incidences such as this one. So that's the first point. The second point, of course, is that President Ramaphosa has once more demonstrated to be a statesman. He was quiet in this. There was no noise, and we see the result of his quiet diplomacy working. That's very good. And I think the MK in particular is sitting a humble pie because they couldn't do much for these men, notwithstanding that one of their senior leaders, who has since resigned, of course, but she was involved in luring these men into Russia. So that's good news. But geopolitically, I think it, again, an embarrassment to Russia. Not only South Africans, but we have Kenyans who are also caught up in these scams of recruiting gullible Africans into fighting wars in Ukraine. These particular men were in Donbass, but there are others in different parts, some Africans where they, again, desperate for jobs. They find themselves fighting this war. So geopolitically, an embarrassment to Vladimir Putin, because it shows a president that's now desperate, because the Russians are unwilling to join this war. So he has looked at recruiting others from different parts of the world to fight this war. It also means, therefore, that he's not winning the war. And it also justifies Vladimir Zelensky's position of wanting to continue fighting with this war, because obviously the human resource reserves are diminishing very fast in Russia, and Vladimir Putin is looking for other sources.
Yeah. And I mean, when we look at, other countries, as I mentioned earlier on, that this is not only South African men. A Kenyan intelligence report apparently has been presented to lawmakers there last week, estimating that 1,000 Kenyans had been recruited to fight on, Russia's side in the war in Ukraine. I want us to look back again at how difficult a task this was for South Africa. I mean, we heard from Minister Ronald Lamola detailing the sensitivity and the difficulties his department, and of course, as you said, President Cyril Ramaphosa had to escalate, of course, this matter to the President, Vladimir Putin, in Russia. How important then was that quiet diplomacy, as you framed it, for South Africa, just given all of the dynamics at play here?
I think it was very important. We're also very impressed that the president did not pay to the political gallery in criticizing what we all know, or who we all know was behind the recruitment, at least according to the reports that have been published so far, the recruitment of these men. So it was a statesman kind of, behavior and action by the president, and it has to be praised for its effectiveness. But at the same time, I think the message must be sent to all of those that plan or intend going to join foreign military participation, that there are consequences. And unfortunately, this time around, of course, we all agree, and the story has gone on to suggest and confirm that these men were lured into this situation they found themselves. But I'm of the view that you need to have a legal position and a decision in terms of how we deal with this moving forward. And the only way you can have that is to have these men facing charges, because notwithstanding what the background is to their presence in Ukraine and Russia, they broke the law by joining a foreign military. And I think there must be that position and a decision taken so that at least we prevent future similar actions from taking place. As I've said, you have hundreds of others who are planning to do this, particularly those that support Israel and who want to go and join the Israeli Defense Force. We have some of them there who are South Africans. Some of them have got dual citizenship, but they are still South Africans who are in Israel fighting the war in Gaza. What will happen to them? What plans can they make in terms of rationale behind the decision to going to Gaza or Israel, for that matter? So there has to be a legal position that will prevent this from ever happening again.
And I would imagine that success of that legal position would then deter these recruiters that we are, finding out about. And of course, we know that there have been arrests. And as you say, legal implications are clear in South Africa in as far as that act is concerned, the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act. But Thembisa, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your time and helping us to unpack this. That is a senior researcher and director at Afrasid, Thembisa Fakude.